I want to go back to a question. You all campaign on fairly significant new programs in education, healthcare, and the like that will cost billions of dollars. At the same time, many of you have said that even if we start pulling troops out of Iraq now, it will take some time to do that in a safe and orderly way. So if we assume that we'll continue to have some military expenses in Iraq for many months, how will you pay for your new ideas in the short term? Senator Biden.
The short term, by the way, the Defense Department's gigantic. It's not just the war in Iraq. Over the period of the first 4 years, I think all of us are going to try to get all the troops out of there. I think I can do it in the first year. But the point is this. We shouldn't buy into this Republican paradigm, to use the fancy word my conservative friends use. And that is that the idea, they built this deficit up, the Republicans, in order to make it difficult to do the things we need to do. And we need to deal with health care. We need to deal with these things. And just list a few things. You can take $20 billion a year out of the Defense Department just by eliminating weapon systems, not building a new atomic weapon, not building Star Wars. You can, in fact, cut. You can put more into the government by close to $150 billion in tax cuts going to people who don't need them, will not affect the economy, and they didn't ask for them. So you can pay for every one of these initiatives, but as my dad used to say, it's all about priorities. What are your priorities? I would fundamentally change the Republican priorities of rewarding only the wealthy, wasteful government programs on Defense Department, as well as dealing with a more rational policy to promote jobs.
Senator Obama?
Well, every proposal I put forward during this campaign, we have paid for, and we have specified where that money is going to come from. But let's just look at our tax code, because it's a great example of how we could provide some relief to ordinary citizens who are struggling to get by. Right now, we've got a whole host of corporate loopholes and tax havens. There's a building in the Cayman Islands that houses supposedly 12,000 U.S.-based corporations. Now, that's either the biggest building in the world or the biggest tax scam in the world, and I think we know which one it is. If we close some of those loopholes, that helps me to pay for an offset on the payroll tax that affects all Americans. We've put forward tax relief plans for those who are making less than $75,000 a year. That will not only restore fairness to our tax code, but it also puts money into the pockets of hardworking Americans who need it right now, who will spend it, and will actually improve our economic growth over time, particularly at a time when we're seeing a credit crunch. But what it requires is some leadership from the White House that restores that sense that we're all in this together and that we're not just on our own.
I'm going to ask Governor Richardson and Senator Dodd to answer this 30 seconds, and then I think we'll move to another question. Governor Richardson.
Well, I detailed $57 billion in military reductions, which involve missile systems, procurement reform. But we got to recognize that the Iraq War has drained our military. And what we need to do is we need a couple of more divisions in the Army. In the Marines, we've got to take care of our veterans. The VA system needs guaranteed funding. Our veterans coming back with mental health problems, with trauma, are not properly being taken care of. And we need to recruit and retain to keep the volunteer Army going. We need to improve our readiness. We need to improve our equipment. So there are some military priorities that America and the next president has to address.
Thank you. Senator Dodd.
Well, again, I try to frame this in the context of what's fair, what's responsible, and what's pro-growth. We've got to grow as well in this country here. And one of the constituencies that's suffering the most, the middle class falling further and further behind. We have some 37 million of our fellow citizens who are living in poverty. About 12 or 13 million are children. One of the things I've done over the years is try to expand the child tax credit here, which would take some 2.5 million children out of poverty. The earned income tax credit ought to be extended further. So we begin to lift people up as well here by providing the opportunities for them to get out of the difficulties they're in economically and have an opportunity to grow, provide those, fill those jobs that need in our country, change our trade policies here. But growing the economy, too often I think Democrats are just associated with tax increases and not growing the economy and not investing in the growth of our nation, which I've been committed to for 26 years in the Senate.